Jordan, what an amazing podcast episode we just recorded. And we have one last question for you. This is called Leveling Up with TKM. Over to David for the question.
Yeah. Hey, thanks again, Jordan. Great conversation, and look forward to future conversation. Look forward to your book coming out, and it looks like we're gonna have to wait over a year to get it, but really looking forward to that, and we'll definitely have you back on the show. Ideally, many more times before that. Here's the question: what is the most impactful action you have taken to level up in your home and in your businesses?
So it's the same answer I give almost always for this type of question, regardless of what realm of your life it is put purpose first. And so I learned this the hard way. Often I put my economics or I put my job title or I put all these other things first and forgot to think about what my true why was. So nowadays I always tell people, think about purpose first, almost put everything else on hold for a short period of time and try to figure out what feels purposeful to you. And then you build the life around that, whether that's your economic life, whether that's your career, whether that's your family life. If you do those things without your eye on purpose, it's like you're doing it without understanding your why. And so to get to those final goals that you really want to reach, it's really hard to get there if you don't start with what's important to you.
Hey, Jordan, can I add to that or have a follow-on question? That's great for the individual who's financially independent already, but what about the person who's barely making ends meet, can barely make the mortgage? Like, what does that person say? How do you say
I
that
think it's even more important then to look at purpose. And so this is the thing, and I always talk about, like, it's very easy to talk about privilege when it comes to purpose. We say, of course, Jordan, you're financially independent. It's really easy for you to think of purpose. But what about all those out there of us who are just barely making it, right? So I think of a 22 or 23-year-old. Maybe they went to college, maybe they didn't. They're stuck in a job that's crummy, they don't love, but they're making enough money to put food on the table. And so what I always tell people is we tend to think about money as a tool to live a good life, but we tend to think about it as the only tool. And that's a big mistake. The truth of the matter is we have a bunch of other tools in our toolkit. So when you're 22, you might not have a lot of money, but you have something I don't have, which is you have your youth and your energy, and you're not married and you don't have a mortgage. And so you have all these other tools. And if you add to that your knowledge, your community, your, things that you love doing, take all those tools, you can start building margin into your life, even when you're economically strapped. So for someone who's 22 or 23, maybe they're really busy. Maybe they feel like I can't start thinking about purpose now. But if you're that age, maybe you have a little bit more energy or time than I have. So you're going to work your 8 to 6 and maybe not enjoy it so much, but you're doing it to make money. But then maybe on a Saturday and Sunday, take a few hours and start thinking about purpose. Maybe start a side hustle, something that feels enjoyable to you. Maybe you start a podcast. Maybe you start selling something. Maybe you use a service that you're good at. Like, I have an example in my new book about a guy who used to be a bike racer in high school, and he didn't have a lot of money when he was a kid. So he knew how to take his bike apart, put it back together. He could fix almost anything. And so he was stuck in the same situation. He was working for a non-for-profit. It was the only job he could get. He was making almost nothing, but he had a few extra hours on the weekend. So he would go and he'd go to the local races and he would fix people's bikes, and they'd throw him a little money, and he got re-involved in this community he loved, and he made a little bit of extra money, and it was a good use of a few hours of his time. Fast forward 6 or 12 months, let's say that business really built and he was making some money. Maybe he could cut back on his 8 to 6 and only do it 4 days a week or 3 days a week because he had extra revenue. Let's say it made no money, but it did reintroduce him to a community he loved, and he got to hang out with bike riders and do things he loved doing. It was still a good use of his time. He still built a few hours of purpose into his week that wasn't there before, even if he's still stuck in the same crummy job. And so I guess my suggestion would be is if you don't have a lot of that one tool, money, it's a great time to start thinking about those other tools you have and leveraging them to start producing a little margin in your life.
That's so good. That's so good. It reminds me of one of our favorite books also is Die with Zero. And in there, he talks about a story. He tells a story of a trip he didn't go on when he didn't have a wife, didn't have kids, and he had the capacity to go on this, amazing trip with his buddies, and he decided not to. And he's like, do those guys think about the 10 grand it cost him and how long it took him to get out of that, that financial burden? No, all they do is tell stories about this amazing trip 40 years later. And I didn't have that experience. And so I love that we have so many assets And we always tend to focus on this one and make it a tool, make it bigger than the hammer that it is. And we miss out. So I love it. I love it. I'm going to sign off here, go load up my snowboard and go get on the mountains.
Quit work for the day.
Have fun working today.
Hey, Jordan, thanks so much. Guys and gals, reach out to Jordan, go to his website and put purpose first. See you.